welcome back to the Music Theory Online video segments that we're doing here at the Music Factory. And we're pretty far into it. We're in number 8 right now, and I hope you're following along with each one, and hope you've been jotting down questions or writing into us to make sure that you have a good understanding of everything up to this point. Last thing we talked about, we're still in that category of melody and understanding key signatures and working in the key of a song, and we broke down the major scale formula last time, and we broke down the minor scale formula. And what it found, if you remember, that depending on where we started, whatever letter we started on, there might be some accidental notes in there. And those accidentals mean either a flat or a sharp that we're having to add. The only key that has all white keys is that C major. That is going to be an easy one. That's why a lot of songs are written in the key of C major. It's pretty easy that you can't really mess it up as long as you hit all the white keys or sing all the white keys. Because it has no sharps or flats in there. But as we went on and we did a few examples of G major, we noticed that there was, if you remember, there was one sharp that was in there. It was the F, because when we did the steps, it created a spot where we had to do an F sharp. So that's kind of the long way of understanding what's in a G major scale. But there's a shorter way that happens in music that will tell you automatically what the key of the song is right from the beginning of the piece of music. So let's take a look at how this works. What you'll usually see in music, if you see this and you see the 4/4 here, remember that time signature, and if there's no indication of sharps or flats written in the beginning, it's going to be in the key of C major. That's that key that has no sharps or flats. However, to make it easier on the composer, okay, what they'll do if we want to play in the key of G major, I'm using that example we did where we had to do one sharp, it was the F. They'll do this at the beginning of the piece of music. They'll put that sharp symbol right on the F line. If you remember, every good boy does fine. It'll mark that every single F that you hit in that piece of music has to be sharped, and now you know that that song is in the key of G major. So you might walk into a scenario to where you look up a piece of music and it looks like that in the beginning. It's going to tell you two important things. One, that every time you play an F, no matter if it's a low F or a high F, it has to be sharped to keep it diatonic to the key of G major. So this little indicator will tell us that it's the key of G. We looked at another one as well. We looked at D major. Remember we had a couple of sharps in there too. We had an F sharp, and we found that there was a C sharp in that scenario too. So if I saw this at a piece of music, an F sharp and then a sharp on the C, I would know that we're in the key of D major because there's two sharps. The F was sharped, and look at that, there's the C, remember, F-A-C-E. So showing that at the piece of music in the beginning tells us that as long as we're playing that piece of music, every time you hit a C or every time you hit an F, you have to make sure it's sharped on your guitar, piano, bass, or your vocal line that you sing that F as a sharp, not a natural, or it will not fit in the key of D major. So this would be the key of C, this would be the key of G, this is the key of D. There's a few examples. Now, you might say, well, Brian, that's a pretty tough thing to, how do you know how to memorize this? Like, if I saw those two sharps, how do I know it's D? Well, you could break it down and go backwards and go, okay, do all the steps. But there's a really helpful tool in music that's called the circle of fifths. And it's a wheel that goes around moving up in motions of 5. That's why it's called the circle of fifths. It's written out to where the C is up at the top. It's kind of like a clock. The C is at 12 o'clock. And if you moved up a fifth, 5 steps, you'd make it to a G. C, D, E, F, G. It's 5 steps. A G to a D is 5 steps. G, A, B, C, D. So it moves in fifths. That's why it's called the circle of fifths. But if you look at the circle of fifths, what it will show you is a little bit like I said, a clock. So if C is at 12 o'clock, if you move over to G at that 1 o'clock, there's a little 1 symbol next to it there, okay? That tells us that it has 1 sharp in it, that being the F sharp that we saw earlier. If we move to the 2 o'clock, the D, there's a number 2 there, because it's at 2 o'clock kind of on the, on the clock there, 2 sharps, and that's going to be F and C. So as this clock keeps moving, let's look at one we didn't do yet. The A would be the next fifth ahead, and that has 3 sharps in there, okay? So what are the sharps though? That is where we have to do a new little portion of memorization, is that the sharps will always go in a particular order. So let me read it out to you. F, C, G, D, A, E, and B are the sharps in order. And let me explain how this works. If it tells me on my circle of fifths that I have to have one sharp, I have to go to the top of that order, the first letter, and choose it, and it's going to be an F. And look at that. Automatically we knew from our previous example that G major has an F sharp in there. So look at that. It kind of is a little cheat sheet for us to kind of use to go through it as opposed to doing all the steps each time. Let's look at the next one. The D said we have to have two sharps. Go to the order I just gave you, and let's pick the first two, F and C. And there it is. Perfect with that. I was just talking about a new example that we have not done yet, A. So instead of going back and going, okay, let's look at A and go whole, half, whole, and doing that whole process, a quicker way is go, okay, look at the circle of fifths, take a look at the A. How many sharps do we have? 3. What are they going to be? Go to the sharps in order, start from the top, and pick the first 3. F, C, and G. So I'm going to go ahead and sharp the F, sharp the C, and sharp the G at the beginning of my piece of music. And that will tell all my musicians that throughout that song, they got to keep those sharp. And if they do, guess what? They're playing in the key of A major. Okay, that do, re, mi sound will be in there. That happy sound we talked about will be ringing throughout. And that's how we stay in harmony together. That's how when we're playing chords and the singer's singing their line, everything sounds like it's fitting together because they're all following the rule that those sharps are there, which was all built off of that major scale and those steps. So I hope that makes sense for you. And again, the circle of fifths is something that is a really useful tool that it takes a little bit of time to kind of memorize it. You may have to refer back to it a lot as you start working with music and pieces of music. But after a while, I'll tell you, you'll come into a piece of music and I'll see 3 sharps. I know it's a key of A. You just start getting really used to knowing what those are as opposed to having to look it up each time. Real quick, I want to cover the other side. The circle of fifths moves all the way around the clock. And as it comes around the clock, it starts to change into flats. All right, so if I was to go up to the top here of C again at 12 o'clock and want to go reverse, if I went to the key of F, it tells me again a little number 1, but we're going the other way now, so we have to do it flats. So there's another order of flats here that we have to go in, and I'll read them off to you. It's B, E, A, D, G, C, and then F. So if we go in reverse on this, okay, and if I wanted to know what the key of F has in it, sharp or flat, we would find out that it has 1. I go up to the top. I start with that first letter, which is B. So putting it on the board here, if I were to see a piece of music that has 1 flat and it's the B line, that tells me I'm in the key of F major. Okay, if you were to take the time right now to write out the F major scale, okay, with the step formula that we did, you would find as you did that, the B in that scale is needed to be flatted. So this circle of fifths, really helpful tool. And as you start to get into pieces of music, you'll notice that at the beginning of that piece of music, right next to the time signature, is what's called the key signature. And that tells us what's sharp or flat and what key that we're in. So I hope that helps, and look forward to seeing you at the next segment. Thank you.